I'd like to share the devastating news that the city of Roswell lost a police officer this evening. One of our officers was shot and killed while serving the citizens of the city of Roswell. Shortly after 7 p.m., Roswell officers were dispatched to the area of Market Boulevard on a call of a suspicious person. The first responding officer encountered the suspect behind the shopping center near here. The suspect almost immediately produced a handgun, shooting and killing the officer multiple times. First responders attempted to provide first aid to the officer. He was transported to an area hospital where he ultimately died as a result of his injuries. Other responding officers were able to locate the suspect nearby, and he was arrested and taken into custody without incident. As is procedure for our officer-involved shootings, I've contacted the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to conduct an investigation into this incident. We have turned the case over to the GBI for their investigation. That is all I have right now.
Sorry for your comments.
Thank you.
All right, we did want to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. Hearing there from the police chief, Jim Conroy, there in Roswell, Georgia, taking another live look there in the city as well. Of course, we also want to put up this post for you there from the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, saying this: tonight, Marty, the girls, and I are praying for the loved ones of Roswell police officer who was shot and killed in the line of duty. We join them, his fellow Roswell PD, and all law enforcement in mourning of this sudden and heartbreaking loss, and we ask all Georgians to join us in keeping them in your thoughts and prayers. We also ask that we remain mindful of the heavy sacrifices that law enforcement and their families make to keep us all safe each and every day. May this courageous man's memory inspire all of us in the days, weeks, and years ahead. Again, that's the full statement there from Governor Brian Kemp there in Georgia, just reminding us of the heavy loss that the Roswell Police Department is taking at this time. So closing out there with another live look of the city. As we get more information on the story, we will continue to keep you updated both on air and online. In the meantime, though, we want to continue on with some of the other coverage that we have here on Live Now from Fox. Some of the other big stories. This came to us a bit earlier today. We heard from President Trump as he spoke to Republican senators as he hosted a dinner there at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Let's listen in to some of his remarks here on Live Now.
That's so much easier. Let me start reading. Look, that's all I need to do is read you a speech. Oh, look, welcome to Mar-a-Lago. Congratulations. I don't know. I don't think we better do this stuff. Not with this group. They give it for Biden, but he doesn't get past the first page. Well, it does help, though, because today I gave a press conference with the Prime Minister of Japan. Nice guy. Tough guy. Tough, but really a nice guy. And it was sort of amazing, the press. Ooh, do we have some press back there? Is that press? Caroline? Oh, how's Caroline doing? Is she doing a good job? She is doing a great job. Good. Well, for the press, for the media, I just want to tell you that these are senators, and some of funders are outside. They didn't get in, actually, which is amazing what happens when you win. You forget them. Isn't it terrible? But now we have some great funders, and they were upstairs, and they're having a meeting of their own. Just they feel so good about this win that they actually got together and said, what are all you guys doing? They're just people that gave money to the campaign, and they're here just to have fun together. There's about 30 of them, and I said, come outside and see the people you got elected. And some of them are tremendously successful people. WeatherTech, a company privately owned that only makes this product here, doesn't want to go to other places to make the product. It's a great product. David, and so many other people. And I said, come down, and some of you have probably said hello to them, but I guess they're up eating by this time. But I just want to say that it's been amazing. It's been an amazing period of time. We've had some fantastic races. We have some people in this room who won races that were very difficult to win. Tim and we have, where's my friend from? Where's Bernie? That was a tough race, I'll tell you. Bernie, they weren't giving you a big shot. I went up with Bernie, I went up on a Friday night just before the primary, and I said, this is the worst weather I've ever seen. It was the windiest day I've ever seen. The teleprompters blew off the stage. I actually got, before I even started, and it was a wind, like a tropical wind in Ohio. And it was brutal, right? Remember that? And I said, well, we're all by ourselves up here with about 50,000 people. But I said, you're going to win that race. And he won the race, and he did great. He did a great job. And David was great. How about that? That was, I don't know, where is David? Where is David? David, with his great wife, who was with me for a long time. But, you know, that was a tough race. That was incredible. I thought, you know, maybe, I don't want to say it, but that might have been the toughest of all. You know, when you have a father that was there for 26 years and a son that's been there for 24 years or whatever it is, that's not easy. And you did it, and you did it. Under a lot of pressure, too. You were under a lot of pressure. He was actually in the field in Butler, when Pennsylvania, when we had that terrible incident. And I saved his life because I said, David, come on up. No, you know what, David? Stay there for a little while. And then I said, let me see the chart. And I looked over to the right. If he would have come up, he would have been maybe not here. So I saved your life by saying, don't come up. I said, come up later, David. That wasn't that a good moment? He looks back, he says, that was a good moment. But I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. You've done incredibly. They've lost their minds. The Democrats have lost their minds, and they've lost their confidence. They have very little confidence. They are different people, and they look foolish. Today they tried to break into the Department of Education just because we want to go and check the books. And Maxine Waters is a lunatic, and you know, they're all lunatics, frankly. It's so sad to see. They should be happy. They shouldn't be sad, you know. It's a funny thing. I went to a golf course that I own, and I was very angry at bankers. This was prior to being president, prior to even thinking about running for president. And I was going crazy because I couldn't get onto the course. One, Palos Verdes in California, and beautiful right on the Pacific. Every hole in the Pacific. And my ad is, I don't use it because you can't get on the course. But my ad is, if I ever have to use it, I have the ocean, Pebble Beach only has the bay. And I said, I'm dying to use that ad, but you don't need it. So I get there with this group of big bankers and very important people, and I'm so angry. I'm just like furious because I can't get on the course. And I'm screaming, I can never get on this course. It drives me crazy. And after about 20 minutes of that, my caddy comes over to me. It's a 70-year-old guy, really nice guy, very smart. Sir, may I speak to you? Yes. He goes, what do you want? He said, sir, other courses are all empty. You're packed. You have the best course in California. You're packed. It's always packed, sir. You can't get on the course. And he used an expression, you should be happy. You shouldn't be sad. And I felt like such a jerk, because he was right. Because he was right. And anyway, but we are happy as a group because we had a tremendous run, and you know, we could have won a couple of more that I thought we were going to win. We won big in Michigan, and Michigan almost won. I don't know why he didn't win. He might be the one. We're talking to Michael and some of the others. He may be the one to run again, but I don't know. He seems to be. He did very well. I thought he won. I thought we won Wisconsin, actually. I thought we could have, meeting the senator, because I won Wisconsin by a lot. We won every race by a lot. We won every race by a lot, and I thought we carried some people. Tim did so incredibly well. And sort of everyone did well. I mean, they worked hard. We took in some great congressional people. We had a couple of issues that were tough issues, but they were good issues. They were great issues, actually. And I think they ceased to be much of a problem, but we did the right thing. You know what I'm talking about in particular, a certain issue. We did the right thing. But we've been together. It's been amazing unity. The only thing I was a little worried, I was asked to do the prayer breakfast, And they said, oh, it's 2 prayer breakfasts. I said, why is it 2? Because they're not getting along, and I'm talking about unity, so I had to do 2 prayer breakfasts. I said, wait a minute. Right? I did the political prayer breakfast with the senators and the congressmen. And then I said, so you mean I have to do it? They used to have it together. But I understand they'll be in good shape for next year. They're going to do 1, right? And they said, well, you can do it by Skype. I said, I don't want to do it by Skype. So I did 1, and I ran to the other one, which was about 5 minutes away, and I did the other one. And I said, what's going on? Well, there's a lack of unity. I said, let's get unified. And everybody's agreed next year we'll do 1 prayer breakfast, not 2. Put it together. And I don't know which speech was better. They were very different, I can tell you. One was in front of political people. The other was in front of our people, right? The people. And we had 7,000, 8,000 people at that one. That was a big one. Now, I heard that you didn't do it because I wasn't in office and I wasn't in Washington. And when they had the prayer breakfast in the big one, the Hilton, which is a very big room, you weren't getting a lot of people. And you didn't want to be associated with an empty room because you're political people. I don't blame you. But we had a big packed day. They couldn't even get into the room. It was sort of a great morning. And next year I know they're going to do it together. But we just have great unity. And the media, which I let in for a little while, but they can hear anything I have to say. I'm an open book. They can say anything. They can have anything. We had a great news conference today with the Prime Minister. Japan, they wanted to buy U.S. steel. I said, I can't let you buy it. I cannot. Other companies, you want to buy it, it's okay. But U.S. Steel was one of the greatest companies in the world. For 17 years, it was the #1 company in the world, like 80 years ago, it's a long time ago, during a certain heyday. I think we're in the heyday now. You want to know the truth? I think we're soon going to be in the heyday. We're going to be higher than everything. And I told them 2 weeks ago, they came in to see me, the people from U.S. Steel, with some Japanese representatives, and I said, I can't let you have U.S. Steel. You cannot buy it. We love Japan. We're not allowed. I'm just not going to let you buy it. It's U.S. Steel. This is one of the great companies of the world. And, and that was real stuff. That was steel. That was guys with nice big arms there taking that steel and that building. Today we have Google and Facebook, and that's fine too. But it's a little bit different. And they become dear, dear friends. I say that. It's amazing how they become. They spent $500 million on lockboxes. And the last one, they're sitting on the stage with me. That was a who's who of the world sitting on the stage. It's very different. The first one, I didn't have a lot of support, but I had a lot of people's support. But, we did great. Then we had the second one where we did much better. We got 10 or 12 million more votes, and we did phenomenally on the second one. But then we said, look, we did great, but a lot of bad things happened, very terrible things. Terrible, terrible things, and look what happened to our country because of it. But then I said, we got to do it again, but we're going to make it too big to rig. And if anybody here thinks they didn't try, they tried like you wouldn't believe, but it was just too big to rig. They walked away. 9:02 in the evening, they knew it was over. There was nothing they could have done. And that's what we had. We had an election that was too big to rig, and it was such an honor. We won every swing state. We had 7. And remember, John, they were talking about, well, maybe Trump could win 3 or 4. We won all of them, and we won them by a lot. It wasn't close, none of them. We had a lot of good things. No tax on tips. That helped me in Nevada quite a bit. I hope we're going to be able to get that, okay? Got to try and get it. Very important, some of the things that are very important, I think, is the 1-year deduction, where you can do something in 1 year. No, we haven't, a lot of people haven't been talking about that. I can tell you the first one, that was so big, where they go out and they invest and they're allowed to do the 1-year deduction. That really revved up. And I've had so many people say, could you do that again? People were doing jobs that they didn't even want to do. Building jobs, creating jobs and building jobs. And Tommy, you know about that. That 1-year deduction was such a big deal. So I hope you guys can start thinking about that and putting it in the bill. But we had a great meeting the other day, and yesterday in the Oval Office with about 22 House members, and they were from all sides, super conservative and slightly on the progressive side. I use progressive because tonight I want to be nice, plus we get a lot of cameras rolling. I want to be nice, but they were very different. And I said, you know, I heard them, I listened for a little while, and then I said, you know, why don't we just balance the budget? Why don't we cut certain things and balance the budget? Don't touch Social Security, don't touch Medicare, Medicaid, just leave them alone. Now, there are people that are illegally in there, because we have a lot of illegal immigrants that have found their way in, and we just can't do that. We just can't do it. But just let's see if we can balance the budget. And they started screaming and shouting, and within about an hour, it was amazing what they found $750 billion in the Green New Scam, and commonly referred to as the Green New Deal, conceived of and dedicated by a young lady who never studied the environment, who knows nothing about the environment, who was a semi-poor student, not a good student, who's not particularly smart, but has some magic. I actually said I watched her campaigning when she campaigned the first time in Queens, because Queens is my territory. I grew up in Queens. And she was running against a friend of yours, Joe, right? You know Joe. And Joe was going to be the next speaker, right? He was going to be the next speaker. It wasn't going to be Nancy Pelosi, who was probably one of the most dishonest people. She became a rich person. She never was anything. She was a politician, and she's worth now $100 million, $125 million. How about the one where she sold her stock a couple of months ago in a company that announced everything? She had the company for years, and then she sold the stock, and the following day they announced that company's under major investigation and the stock crashed. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. They're crooks. So she was running AOC. I say AOC plus 3, but she was running, and I watched her run. And I said, oh, she's pretty good. She's got a spark. And I called Joe, who I don't know too much. I said, are you running against her? Yeah. But are you not debating her? No, she's got no chance. And he's been in there for like 25, 26 years. Unlike Tim Scott, who absolutely destroys his opponents all the time. You really do too. By the way, he was the greatest surrogate. He was the greatest surrogate. I said he was brutal. He was very nice. You know, when he ran, he was nice. For himself, he was nice. He was such a gentleman. But unfortunately, that doesn't get elected all the time. And I said, how do you think Tim would be as a surrogate? And I watched him the first time, and he destroyed everybody. And then he went again, and he said to me, and I thought it was beautiful, actually, because it's like the opposite of me. He said, I've never been able to speak well about myself because I don't like bragging. And I said, isn't that nice? Isn't it nice that somebody's like that? And it's true. He was always a great campaigner, but it was a good campaign. But it wasn't a vicious, violent campaign, right? But for me, he was vicious and violent. You just destroyed people. So I want to thank you. I see you sitting with your new beautiful wife, and I just want to thank you. He's a great guy. Everybody in this room, as far as I'm concerned, look at Mark Wayne back there. Don't fight him. Just don't fight him. He almost got into a fight with a tough cookie. I know that tough cookie, right? Head of the Teamsters. He's a fantastic guy, Sean. Well, he almost got, but he could have been in trouble with this one, though. Sean's pretty tough, but he would have been in trouble. But I see everybody in this room, and I mean, there's nobody. And if I didn't like somebody, I would tell you. I like you know what I like about Chuck Grassley? He made Comey choke because he got this voice, and he wasn't meaning, but he said, "Did you lie?" And Comey was like, it was unbelievable. Remember, and he said, "Yes, yes." I said, he just admitted he lied, and he just said it like he's just got this way about him. You made him choke. That was good. He deserved to choke too. But everybody in this room it's been really amazing. It's been amazing. The relationships have been good. And we don't always agree on everything, but we get there. We get there. We had a couple of people that had to get a little bit, they had to study a little bit further to get some of our nominees. I think you're going to find our nominees are very good. I think it's very important. You know, when we talk Bobby Kennedy, I think he's up there having dinner tonight. It's very interesting, but he's a good person. And he's not a radical. He said, you know, I'm getting sort of this reputation of being anti-vaccine and everything else. He said, I'm not anti, and I understand through the campaign that his kids had vaccines and all. He said, you know, I grew up in a slightly political family. Would you say that was the candidate? He said, I grew up in a political family. I mean, I'm not a crazy person. I'm very moderate in a certain way, and I never forgot that, and I think it's true. But I think we need somebody like this, and Dr. Oz working with him, because if you look at autism and you go back 20 years, I think it was like 1 in 10,000 children, but actually I think the number is even higher than that. 1 in 10,000, 1 in 20,000 children had autism. And now it's 1 in 34. What's that all about? What's that all about? 1 in 34. And I think we really got to get to the bottom of it. I really believe we're going to figure the reason. I don't know, maybe it's pesticides or maybe it's something, but we're going to figure the reason we spend more money on food, on cleaning it, on spraying it, or doing all this stuff. And we're going to find out what it is. But I think we probably needed somebody that, you know, that's a little bit outside of the box. And he's also very popular outside of the party. I mean, if you look overall, I mean, very, very popular. And people gave him great support. But I just appreciate the people that got there. And it showed great unity. And if you didn't get there, the press, these same people that have the cameras rolling, they'd be saying, Trump has lost total control of the party. Now I have somebody who's, I think, fantastic, Elon. And Elon was a recluse. You know, he was a very reclusive person, but I know him. He's a brilliant guy. But he was reclusive, and I think we got him to be very unreclusive, right? I said, man, has he changed with the hat on? Did you see the hat yesterday? But he's a great guy, and he loves the country, and he's wanted to do this for a long time. If he could have done it himself, he would have done it himself. And, you know, he went into this group of people, and you see what they've been spending money on. The horrible USAID, the horrible things that they're spending money on. It's got to be kickbacks. You know, they send the money to the guy, he takes the money and he sends them back. Most of the money he keeps some for himself. In my opinion, I think that's because you can't send the money to these groups of people. It's a terrible thing, and I think it's like that in others too. And I said, go to the next one. I'd like you to look at Department of Education. And I think you're going to find it's very similar, different but similar. And go into the military, go into everything. I mean, I want you to go into everything. But I said to the congressman yesterday that, why don't we balance the budget? Why don't we balance the budget? Why should we wait 10 or 15 or 20 years to balance it? You know, they were talking about little cuts. We can have big cuts that don't affect anybody, waste, fraud, and abuse. And we're finding it now. That's one of the beauties of what Elon's doing. He started with a group of 25 super geniuses. They wear undershirts. They look like, I mean, I look at them. I said, but then I realized he's got 182 IQ. That's what we need. And they go in, and they'll ask people that aren't nearly as smart as them, why is it that you made this ridiculous paper? Why is it? And the guy gets all tongue-tied. He can't talk because he's against somebody that's much smarter. And it's amazing, actually, what they've exposed, and to a level where they cut 97% of the people out. The whole thing is a scam, and you look at some of the people working there, they're very political people, they're relatives, and it's just terrible. But you're going to find that elsewhere. And then I think we're going to see something tremendous with respect to the tariffs, because, you know, other countries tariff us, so we don't tariff them. And with Lindsay, I don't know if you remember the conversation, Lindsay, but I had a conversation with Lindsay, who's so talented on so many things, but I would say finance, he's less interested. No, he's very, look, he gets it, but he's less interested. And I said to him, you know, certain countries, they charge us a tariff, and I want to charge them the same thing, and I like that, and I want to charge them the same thing. I said, okay, so let's get this straight. They charge us like 100%. We charge them nothing. I said, that's right. He said, so you want to charge them 100%? I said, I want to charge them whatever. If it's 80% or if it's 25%, I want to. Lindsay looked at me and goes, you got my vote. And it was very simple. And he's a great guy, and he's running for office, and I'm going to endorse him, and he's going to do very well. I think he's going to do very well. Well, we're batting, I think, with 299 and 0 in the Republican. But you know what? We're 355. Brian Jack, where's the great Brian Jack? 355 out of 355 general elections. We won, I think, 234. That's not bad either. But with the Republicans, it's been almost flawless. So I think, let's not congratulate Lindsey yet. But I think you're in good shape, okay? He's been a fantastic, in my opinion, a fantastic senator, and he's a nice guy. He's a little more left than I am, a little more left than you are. But he is a great guy, and he's going to have no problem. So I appreciate all of the unity. I appreciate this tremendous support. There's Doug Burgum as an example. What a great, he was fantastic. And Catherine, thank you, Catherine. And he was a big part of today's event because he and Chris Wright, you know, Chris Wright, I don't know if Chris is here, but Chris Wright is the #1 guy in the world in oil and gas. And I'll never forget, I had a meeting here with a lot of the oil companies and Doug and some senators, a lot of people. And I said, Doug, I really want you to be Department of Energy. And he looked, he said, look, there's a man in this room right now who's so much better than me. He's the most talented oil guy in the whole country. I said, who the hell is that? Because he's done, you know, he made a lot of money with the internet stuff and, you know, different things. Not oil. I thought he was an oil and gas guy. He wasn't. He sold his company to Microsoft for a tremendous amount of money. Very successful. Became the governor of North Dakota and ran a great state. And he became an expert on energy because they have energy, on fracking in particular. But I said, I want you to be the, if I win this was even before I won, but I thought we were going to win early on. I said, I want you to be the head of energy. He said, look, there's a man in this room right now who's better than anybody in the world, Chris Wright. And he was sitting there, and I said, this man over here, yeah, that man, he's better than me, he's better than anybody for what we want, getting the oil out of the ground properly. And I said, well, let's talk. And so I talked to Chris, and I was impressed by him, but more importantly, he was impressed by him. And it was interesting, so he became the Secretary of the Interior. And it's interesting for a different reason, because Chris is energy, but there is no energy. He's the department, there's some nuclear, but there's no energy. He's interior, he's got all the energy. So I said, why don't you merge together and work together? And they've essentially done that. Doug and Chris, they're working together because he's got more energy than any country anywhere in the world under his auspices, but he's not Department of Energy, so he can't drill. But now he's got a man that he knows very well, that's, I assume, a friend of his or whatever, but he got the job because of you. And he didn't need a job. He was doing very well. This guy didn't need a job. He's the top guy in the whole world. But I see that so often. So many people, they want to be a part of this. They want to do what you're doing, John. They want to do what all of you senators are doing. I mean, you don't make money like they make. You could, if you did it. Many of you are so talented, you could do whatever you want to do. But they want to do what you're doing. It's very interesting. And you don't want to do what they're doing. You'd rather be a senator. It's crazy. In other words, you like power. And that's okay, too. But, and that's what you have. You have a tremendous amount of power. But so Chris and Doug have gotten together, and essentially they're like, unbelievable, and what you're going to be doing is unbelievable. And we have a lot of confidence in you. And if we bring the energy prices down, everything's going to follow. That's what got it up. We had a great energy policy. We did great. We had oil, we had gasoline at $1.84. We actually had it much lower than that for a little period of time, but we had it at $1.84. And then they took my my policy and they really messed it up. And then they went back to my policy. You know, they always said, well, we were drilling just as much. What they don't say is, if I were there, we would have been double or triple that number. But they basically took my policy because it was going through the roof. They said, we're really in trouble. So they went back to my policy as much as they could, but not all the way back. And the energy is what caused us the problem. They went up at the beginning, if you remember. Then they went back to try and bring it down. They had to harness that horse. But they went back, and it went up, and it went up really dramatically, and that caused everything else to go up. And energy goes up, and energy, when it comes down, we're going to bring a lot of things. So we're counting on you guys to supply and demand to bring that cost of energy down. You bring that down, and everything else is going to follow. All of the cost of food, I hear so much about the word groceries. I used to use groceries a lot on the trail. A word, it's like sort of an old-fashioned word, groceries. But groceries is the word that's the most accurate word. And the price of groceries went through the roof. Bacon was levels like nobody's ever seen. You take a look at eggs today. I mean, the eggs are double, triple, quadruple. They're going through the roof. Now, there's some problems that may, a little outside problem with eggs, maybe. But, we inherited a mess. We inherited a country that's a mess. There was no reason to allow millions of criminals into our country, millions. People that were, I'd say 3 million, 4 million, 21 million people all told, but 3 million, 4 million criminals, many, many thousands and thousands of murderers, people that murdered people, killers, people that murdered 2 people, 3 people, and even 4 people in jail, in solitary confinement. They let them out of jails from all over the country, but really from all over the world. Venezuela let out so many people. Their crime rate is down 78%. I can't believe they haven't allowed every single, some of these countries allowed every single prisoner, and they put them on buses and they bus them in, or they put them on planes, because these are countries also from Africa, from Asia, not just South America, a lot from South America, but not even the most. I mean, we have them coming from all over the world, and we're letting them in. They let them in from the Congo. For whatever reason, the Congo is prime territory to come into our southern border. They get them up to the border and they let them in with this stupid open borders policy. So this would have never happened if the election were proper. In other words, if the election weren't rigged, which it was, and it would have never happened. But I will say this, it's much bigger. Historically, this is much bigger. It showed what this ideology that some people are facing throughout the world, that showed how bad this ideology is, how incompetent the people are, but how bad the ideology is, the ultra-left stupid policy. And I don't think they can get elected for a long time. They're still, they just suffered a big election defeat. They're very depressed. And they're using the same things. We just signed a bill yesterday. It was so incredible that no more men playing in women's sports, right? And stand up, big boy, stand up. How about this guy? Okay. Now I'm using him as, he was a great player. He played in the Jets for, 10 years? Ohio said, is he going to play in sports with his wife? Wouldn't that be lovely? She's the size of his leg, maybe somewhat smaller. The whole thing was ridiculous. You saw I was reading off some of the stats yesterday in the room, and I said there was a long-distance race. They had the best female racers and the best male racers, long-distance running race. And the man won by 5 hours and 24 minutes. I mean, that's not... The greatest, though, are the weightlifting records, where they break the record, a record that stood for 18 years, and they'd go and they'd put a quarter of an ounce here, a quarter of an ounce, and they go, and they couldn't quite get it up, and this guy came in, and he was a poor man weightlifter, not a good one. He was at the lower realm of weightlifting. He goes up, boom, and he ends up like 127 pounds more. He was it was one of the worst. I don't know, maybe that's why he decided to transition, as the expression goes. I've got very good...
All right, as you see there, we were just listening into some of those remarks there from President Trump as he was hosting a dinner for Republican senators there at Mar-a-Lago. We brought that to you a bit earlier, but did want to play out a few of those moments as well. Thanks for staying with us here on Live Now from Fox. On the other side of our 2-minute break, our coverage here continues. Stay with us.
Sit down, please.
I know.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you all. President Trump is in charge, and America is back. This week further demonstrated that the Trump effect is real. Over the weekend, Americans celebrated the return of American-Israeli citizen Keith Siegel and 2 Israelis who were held captive by Hamas terrorists since October 7th, 2023. President Trump and his administration worked diligently to secure their release and are committed to freeing all remaining hostages. Yesterday, as you all know, President Trump held his first foreign meeting at the White House with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And as the president said, the bonds of friendship and affection between the American and Israeli people have endured for generations and are absolutely unbreakable. The president is committed to eliminating Hamas and securing a lasting peace for the entire region. The historic proposal for the United States to take over Gaza, announced by President Trump last night, underscores this commitment. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. President Trump is an outside-of-the-box thinker and a visionary leader who solves problems that many others, especially in this city, claim are unsolvable. We've already seen the results from President Trump's bold peace-through-strength diplomacy on the world stage. In response to President Trump's tariffs this week, both Mexico and Canada took immediate steps to alleviate the illegal alien migration and flow of deadly drugs, particularly fentanyl, into our country. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to permanently supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the U.S. border who will be specifically designated to stopping fentanyl and criminal aliens from pouring into our country. And Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau agreed to appoint a fentanyl czar, list cartels as terrorists, and increase resources to assist the 10,000 frontline personnel at our northern border with Canada. In recognition of these steps, President Trump paused the implementation of tariffs for 1 month while negotiations continue and final deals can be structured. Throughout the transition and during his inaugural address, President Trump made it known that the United States cannot and will not allow the Chinese Communist Party to continue with its effective and growing control over the Panama Canal. Following Secretary Rubio's successful first trip and visit there over the weekend, Panama's president said he will allow participation in the Chinese Communist Party's, it will no longer allow the participation in the Belt and Road Initiative. That participation will expire. This is significant because Panama was the first Latin American nation to join Belt and Road and now becomes the first to back away from it because of President Trump. And to assist with the ongoing mass deportation effort, El Salvador's president has agreed to the most unprecedented migratory agreement anywhere in the world. Because President Trump is back in charge, El Salvador has offered for illegal aliens of any nationality facing deportation in the U.S. to be booked in his country's prison system. And finally, President Trump's envoy for special missions, Rick Grenell, traveled to Venezuela and not only secured the release of 6 American hostages, but Venezuela also agreed to accept the return of illegal alien Tren de Aragua gang members. All of these incredible victories prove how well President Trump's peace-through-strength approach is working. And the days of weak American leadership are over. In another success story this week, efforts to seal the border, halt the invasion, and carry out the largest mass deportation campaign continue at lightning speed. Customs and Border Protection has approximately 79 miles of new border wall projects already underway in various stages of construction and planning. The first flights arrived to Guantanamo Bay yesterday afternoon out of El Paso. And who were some of the passengers aboard, you may ask? There were 10 members of the transnational gang Tren de Aragua on this flight. And overall, our heroic ICE agents continue to prioritize the removal of violent, criminal, illegal aliens in communities across the country. On February 3rd, ICE Dallas arrested a citizen of Nicaragua who has been convicted of sexual assault, strong arm, and lewd acts with a minor and sentenced to 15 years in prison. ICE Los Angeles arrested a Mexican citizen who has been convicted of lewd acts with a minor and sentenced to 364 days. And ICE Atlanta arrested a citizen of Mexico who has been convicted of homicide by vehicle and hit and run and sentenced to 6 months confinement. And ICE New York arrested a Venezuelan national and known TDA gang member who has a prior criminal conviction for assault in the 3rd degree causing physical injury. Americans are safer every single time one of these criminals is arrested and deported from our country. On another important and ongoing topic, the Senate is working fast to confirm President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees in the face of relentless media smear campaigns. As of right now, 12 members of the president's cabinet have been confirmed, most recently Pam Bondi, who, as you all know, I was just in the Oval Office for that swearing-in ceremony surrounded by Pam's lovely family, and we look forward to watching her serve as the Attorney General of the United States. According to CNN, President Trump is getting more cabinet picks confirmed so far than the average president in the modern era. Another success story. And we believe it's critical that Republicans in the Senate majority stay tough and keep their foot on the gas to confirm all of the remaining nominees as quickly as possible so we can continue President Trump's important work here at the White House and across our entire federal government. And lastly, throughout his historic campaign, President Trump pledged to restore common sense to our country. And he is continuing to deliver on that with an executive order that he will sign later today. The president will be signing an executive order keeping men out of women's sports to defend the safety of athletes, protect competitive integrity, and uphold the promise of Title IX. This common sense action from President Trump ends the disgusting betrayal of women and girls by the administration who for years catered to radical activists who wanted biological males to be treated as women in workplace showers, competitive sports, prisons, and even rape shelters. Gender ideology insanity is over. Submissions from individuals across the country interested in participating in our new media seat at a future briefing continue to flood in. We are at more than 12,000 and counting. If you're watching right now and are interested, you can continue to apply on our new media website, whitehouse.gov/newmedia. And in the seat today, we have a longtime national television broadcaster. I'm sure many of you recognized her when she came in, Sage Steele, who is now the host of an incredibly successful podcast, The Sage Steele Show, on YouTube and all podcast platforms. And previously, Sage was a fixture at ESPN from 2007 to 2023, primarily hosting SportsCenter, which we all know well, before leaving the company to exercise her First Amendment rights more freely. We are honored to welcome her to the briefing room today. She will be joining the president at the big EO signing later this afternoon. I know many of you will be there as well. So Sage, why don't you kick us off on this very exciting day for women and girls across the country. Thank you for joining us.
It is exciting, and Caroline, thank you for welcoming people like me with a little bit of a different perspective, different background in this seat. It really does mean a lot. Thank you. Obviously, the House already passed the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which was a really big step for women and girls. So far, the Senate, as we know, has not brought it up to vote. We all know executive orders can be overturned, so I'm wondering how important it is to the president to get Congress to bring this, to pass legislation, so there are no instances like the past administration that really tried to destroy Title IX.
It's incredibly important that Congress immediately acts on this priority. I think the president is really setting the tone, making this a very immediate priority for this administration, just as he promised on the campaign trail. And I'd like to get into the executive order a little bit because it is the news of the day here at the White House, and talk about what this executive action will actually do. So the executive order that the president will be signing later this afternoon, as I said, upholds the promise of Title IX. It also will require the DOJ to abide by the nationwide previous administration's illegal Title IX rewrite that would have dissolved single-sex spaces and opportunities. It also requires immediate action, including enforcement actions against schools and athletic associations comprised of schools that deny women single-sex sports in single-sex locker rooms. The executive order also calls for the convening of private sporting bodies in the White House. We want them to come to this campus so the president can hear in person the stories of female athletes who have suffered lifelong injuries, who have been silenced and forced to shower with men and compete with men on athletic fields across the country. Many of those women will be at the White House today. I encourage all of you in the media to actually talk to them, to hear their stories. And I would also just add one more thing. This is a wildly popular position with the American people. In fact, there was a new poll recently that showed the overwhelming majority of Democrats also support keeping biological men out of women's sports. And so I know the president is very excited about the bill signing that will take place at 3 o'clock this afternoon. You will hear from him more on that later, and we look forward to seeing you there, Stage. So thank you very, very much. Garrett, great to see you here today.
Thank you. On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
He did not rule out American troops in Gaza last night. Are you doing that now?
I am saying that the president has not committed to that just yet. He has not made that commitment, and you know that.
And on the foreign partners, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis have already panned this plan. What foreign partners, if any, have expressed any interest in being part of it?
Well, the president has said he's been socialing this idea for quite some time. He's been thinking about this. He said in his remarks last night, this was not a decision or an announcement that he takes lightly. And the president has already spoken to the President al-Sisi. In fact, that was his first foreign leader call. He's meeting with the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, next week. He spoke with the King of Bahrain. He spoke with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And he has made it very clear, he's been very vocal, that he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we can rebuild their home. I'd like to show you some images of Gaza that were taken. Fox News aired this. I mean, that is, as they put it, in an apocalyptic scene in Gaza. This is an uninhabitable place for human beings. Do you really think that families can live their dream in a region that looks like this, with no running water, no electricity? And the special envoy, the president, Steve Witkoff, recently traveled to Gaza, as you all know. And he came back with images that he showed the president of the dire situation here. And the president made this decision with a humanitarian heart for all people in the region. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. Are any officials here preparing to fight Democratic lawmakers in the streets?
Absolutely not.
So
Thanks for the question.
Some elected Democrats are so steamed about Doge. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver says we are at war. Ilhan Omar says we might actually see somebody get killed. And Chris Van Hollen says we have to fight this in the Congress. We have to fight this in the streets. So what now?
And may I just point out, If you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening here. And for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
It sounds like something that they're most concerned about is Doge engineers to Treasury systems. Can you clarify? Do the Doge engineers have read-only access in these systems, so they are not allowed to write new code? They are not. Okay. And then one more thing. NBC is reporting that some of the illegal immigrants that we've seen rounded up and arrested are not being deported. They're being released with ankle or wrist monitoring devices, or they have to check in on the phone. So is the administration arresting more people than you have room for?
I have seen the reports, and I'm glad you brought it up because we want to address it. There have been a total of 461 illegal aliens. This is of this morning when I got this information from DHS that have been released from custody. Of the more than 8,000 that have been arrested since President Trump was inaugurated, it's less than 6%. And there are reasons for their release. Some of the factors include a lack of significant likelihood of removal in the foreseeable future, lack of detention availability, which is something this president and this administration has been incredibly vocal about. We are doing everything we can to deport and detain illegal immigrants, but we need Congress's help to increase funding for Border Patrol and for ICE, to increase detention capability in our facilities. And then other serious medical conditions have also been the reasons for some of the release of these individuals. But none of them have final deportation orders. Many of them are probably contesting their immigration status. I'd refer you to DHS for more details, but I did get that information because I knew it'd be a question, so thank you. Sure. Yes.
The president and you here again today have made clear, given the devastation, you think Palestinians have no choice but to leave Gaza and go elsewhere. But Palestinians say this is their home. They don't want to go. The president last night said he's willing to use the military if necessary. Is the U.S. prepared to remove Palestinians from Gaza by force?
The president is prepared to rebuild Gaza for Palestinians and all people in the region, peace-loving people who want real economic development and opportunity in the region. This is a region that has been controlled by Iranian-backed terrorists, Hamas, who have brutalized not just Israelis but Palestinians too. It is because of Hamas that you see those images on that screen, that Gaza has become a demolition site, because Hamas launched that brutal attack on Israel on October the 7th. And so again, I would stress, President Trump wants to ensure that this can be a place where all people can live in peace. He is a peacemaker in chief. He made that very clear in his first term. And as for how that will be accomplished, the president and his team are talking with our allies in the region to consider next steps.
But should the American people be prepared to see U.S. military on the ground fighting a ground war against Hamas?
Again, the president has not committed to U.S. troops in the region.
But it is an option.
I have said that the president has not committed to that yet. Sure.
If I could just follow up on that, though, why not rule out the idea of committing U.S. troops? This has been a long-standing argument that the president has made really over the last decade or so, talking about endless wars, not something the U.S. wants. Why not rule out troops?
Because I think the president is very good when he's making deals and negotiating not to rule out anything, because he wants to preserve that leverage in negotiations. And so I think that's what he's doing here. Mary.
Follow up on that, though. He also said that everyone loves this plan. He said that in the Oval Office this morning. In fact, the Deputy Prime Minister of Jordan called it a declaration of war on the Arab people. So how does he square the fact that even some Republicans on the Hill are objecting to this or questioning this? How does he square the fact saying everyone loves this plan?
Well, King Abdullah of Jordan will be here next week, so I can provide you more context on the conversations he will have directly with the President of the United States after that meeting. And I would just point out that there's been a lot of leaders and officials all around the world who have doubted, I suppose, the deal-making ability of President Trump. You heard the Panama leader saying that would not agree to some of the concessions that he has now made because of Secretary Rubio's visit. visit. You had the Colombian president saying he wouldn't accept flights of Colombian illegal nationals who have entered into our country illegally, and those flights are underway. So actions speak louder than words. Dasha.
Caroline, you said the president has been working on this idea for a while behind the scenes now. Is there a written plan based on the president's proposal for Gaza? And if so, when was it drafted and who had a hand in that?
The plan was written in the president's remarks last night as he revealed it to the world and to the American people, and his team are continuing to be engaged on this effort. I saw the National Security Advisor this morning. He has a very busy day of calls, and they will, again, continue to engage with our partners. That includes Steve Witkoff as well. Mary.
Two questions for you on the news of the day. So how is today's executive order going to impact the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles? For example, would a man who thinks that he's a transgender woman be allowed to compete as a female on U.S. soil?
It's a very good question, and the president has actually mentioned this, that he does expect the Olympic Committee and the NCAA to no longer allow men to compete in women's sports. And I think the president, with the signing of his pen, starts a very public pressure campaign on these organizations to do the right thing for women and for girls across the country. Again, this is an incredibly popular position. There have been many notable female athletes who have had the courage to speak out against some very powerful institutions in this country. They deserve to have a voice and a say. The president is bringing their voice to the highest level at the White House this afternoon, and he expects these organizations to comply with this federal executive order that he'll be signing today.
Thank you. And one more. On media coverage of this executive order and the topic in general, what's the White House's view of framing that calls men transgender females or similar rhetoric coming from organizations like the ACLU and GLAAD?
Well, it's been very clear. The policy of this administration is that there are only two sexes, male and female. Pretty simple. Brian Glenn.
Yes. USAID has gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of days with some of these bizarre things that we've been, taxpayers have been funding. Now it looks like there are a couple media outlets that have been dragged into this conversation as far as USAID funding as well. Does the president have any comment on that?
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than $8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort. Thank you. I'd like to give some love to the back row. I've heard that unfortunately they haven't been called on in years past. So Reagan, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Caroline. The WHC announced that comedian Amber Ruffin, who has called the president a toddler with his pants pulled down, will be the entertainment for this year's Correspondents' Dinner. Does the White House have a reaction to this choice, and will the president be attending the dinner this year?
Certainly an interesting choice. I have the president's invitation on my desk. I have the invitation for myself on my desk as well. Haven't talked to the president about it. When he makes his decision, I will let you know. But definitely an interesting choice of the comedian. I'll talk to the boss about it and see what we decide. Sure, go ahead.
Caroline, in the back,
yes,
thank you.
yes.
Appreciate it. On the executive order set to be signed today, you said that this will be enforced. Can you spell out for schools and the public how exactly the administration plans to enforce this, even at the local level? And on top of that, there are human rights groups who say that this could expose kids to discrimination. What is your response to that?
I think kids have already been exposed to discrimination, especially young women and girls who have been forced to shower in locker rooms with biological men, who have been forced to compete on playing fields with biological men, which is incredibly unfair and unsafe, and again, an incredibly unpopular policy with the American people. As for the actions that this executive order takes, I already laid those out at the beginning of the briefing. I'm happy to give you a copy of this fact sheet so you can let your audiences across the country know.
What's your message to schools who don't comply with this?
They should, because it's going to be federal law in about an hour and a half. So your colleague to your right, to my
Thanks,
left.
Caroline.
Yes.
Taylor with Spectrum News. You talked a bit about Doge. Elon Musk is currently a, quote, special government employee who also owns companies that have billions of dollars in federal contracts. You said earlier this week that he has abided by all applicable federal laws, but what steps is the Trump administration taking to address that conflict of interest?
The president was already asked and answered this question this week, and he said if Elon Musk comes across a conflict of interest with the contracts and the funding that Doge is overseeing, then Elon will excuse himself from those contracts. And he has, again, abided by all applicable laws. In the back left, go ahead.
Trade advisor Peter Navarro, when asked about the External Revenue Service today, said, quote, we're going to collect a lot of tariff revenues and we're going to get tax cuts out of it. Is it the official position of the White House that tariffs will lower taxes for Americans?
The president has always been clear that he believes tariffs are a tax on foreign nations, and he's committed to cutting taxes for the American people here at home. He also believes tariffs are a great revenue raiser for this country, and that's exactly why he has committed to the creation of the External Revenue Service, which I think is a phenomenal idea. Or just go down the whole row. Go ahead.
Tom Bateman with the BBC. Can you confirm that under the president's plans for Gaza, any and all Palestinians who want to stay in Gaza on their land will be allowed to do so?
I can confirm that the president is committed to rebuilding Gaza and to temporarily relocating those who are there because, as I've showed you repeatedly, it is a demolition site. There is no running water. There is no electricity. The president wants these individuals to live in peace. He is committed to doing that with this very bold new plan, and we will continue to keep you apprised of updates as we receive them. Ed Lawrence,
that's not an answer.
Yes, go ahead, Ed.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So now that the President Trump's policies are starting to take shape, how long will it take to cycle through and get some of the actual prices that Americans are paying to come down?
Prices at the store and at the grocery pump, across the board, sure. Well, the president is doing everything he can, obviously, to reduce the cost of living crisis in this country as quickly as possible. That's why he signed a litany of executive orders across the board. In the first couple of weeks here, he declared a national energy emergency. He committed to cutting 10 regulations for every new one on the book. As you know, working for a Fox Business-related outlet, deregulation and energy independence are huge drivers of reducing inflation in this country. And I think Americans can be assured by the results President Trump had in his first term, when again inflation was 1.4% when he left office.
But is it months or is it a year? And will Americans have the patience to wait for it?
I don't have a timeline, but the president is doing everything that he possibly can to reduce cost of living for Americans at home. Phil Wegman.
Thank you. Is it worth risking the life of a single U.S. Marine to turn the Gaza Strip into the Riviera of the Middle East?
Phil, I'm not sure why you're asking me that question because I've already said the president has not committed to sending Marines or any boots on the ground in Gaza. We'll bring it to the front row.
You're holding out a possibility?
Good to see you again here in the front row, Caroline. Two things. On today's announcement, Title IX, if he scales back the education department or moves to shut it down entirely, what entity will enforce Title IX?
As of now, this will be enforced through education, through Title IX. If the abolishment of the Department of Education continues, which, as the president said yesterday, it's something his team is looking at and considering. It's something he talked a lot about on the campaign trail. Then, of course, we will look at additional maneuvers to ensure that these very important policies can be implemented.
Okay, so the education abolishment thing's still on the table. Title IX.
The president talked about it yesterday in the Oval Office, and he has good reason to talk about it. I mean, look, our education system is failing students in this country. The Nation's Report Card, I brought it up in my remarks last week, it shows that fourth graders are not reading at the level they should. I believe it was 40% of them are proficient in reading. As the mother of a child, I want an education system that helps my child read and write, teaches him math, nothing else in the classroom. And the president is wholeheartedly committed to we can make academia great again in this country.
One other
Deanna.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Caroline. Does the president, is he...
And every time it's an honor, I will tell you.
Musk's team has already gained access to at least 10 federal agencies. 2 million federal workers already receiving emails like this one. The subject line, fork in the road, the same one he used when he was slashing the workforce at Twitter. The offer, resign now and be paid through September or run the risk of being laid off. Across the country from Wisconsin to Nevada to Washington, protests popping up. Signs like this reading, let's send Elon to Mars. But tonight, the president saying he wants Musk to go even further, instructing him to tackle the Pentagon's sprawling bureaucracy, though companies Musk owns have had $5.6 billion in contracts with the agency.
Is there anything you've told Elon Musk he cannot touch?
Well, we haven't discussed that much. I'll tell him to go here, go there. He does it. He's got a very capable group of people. There could be areas that we won't, but I think everything's fertile. You know, we're a government. We have to be open. And as an open government, I don't know, I guess you could say maybe some high intelligence or something. And I'll do that myself if I have to. But generally speaking, I'll just say go. But he will be looking at education pretty quickly, and he will be looking at military too.
And tonight, the president asked about a young engineer on Musk's team. The Wall Street Journal reporting he resigned because of racist online posts the paper uncovered, including, quote, "I was racist before it was cool. You cannot pay me to marry outside my ethnicity," and normalize Indian hate. Vice President J.D. Vance writing on X, "I obviously disagree with some of his posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life, so I say bring him back."
The vice president says, bring him back. What do you say?
Well, I don't know about the particular thing, but if the vice president said that, did you say that? I'm with the vice president.
And tonight, Musk posting he will be brought back. To err is human, to forgive divine. In an extended news conference alongside the Prime Minister of Japan, the president also asked today about whether he plans to fire the FBI agents who worked on cases of those who rioted on January 6.
Are you planning to fire the FBI agents who worked on those investigations?
No, but I'll fire some of them because some of them were corrupt. I have no doubt about that. I got to know a lot about that business, that world. I got to know a lot about that world, and we had some corrupt agents, and those people are gone, or they will be gone. And it'll be done quickly and very surgically.
And Rachel joins us now from the White House. Rachel, there's some more breaking news tonight coming from the White House concerning access to classified information. What have you learned?
Yeah, this is just coming in here, Phil, tonight at the White House. President Donald Trump posting on social media, he says that he's revoking the security clearance of former President Joe Biden, saying that he will now be stopping any intelligence briefings and cutting off all access to any classified information. In the social media posts, the president says that the former president cannot be trusted, Phil.
All right, Rachel Scott from the White House. Rachel, thank you. We want to talk a little bit more about that. ABC News contributor and former CIA agent Daryl Blocker joins me now. Daryl, thanks for taking the time. In his post on Truth Social, President Trump does point out that this was what President Biden did to him in 2021 on the heels of an insurrection. But what normally happens in a situation like this?
So, Phil, typically what happens is there's no question that the former presidents have all been given the same rights as everyone else. I do believe when Biden made that decision, there was questions about his access, as in Trump's access and continued holding of classified information. That investigation was going on. But the revoking his clearances, the president doesn't have a clearance, just like members of Congress don't have to have a clearance in order to have access to that information. So that little tidbit was more for his base than anything else.
Why would it be important for a former president to receive or have access to this material?
Well, quite frankly, there's a lot of things that really don't fit themselves into 4-year blocks of oversight. So there'll be some things that happened under his administration that he would more than likely want to keep track of, or at least be back briefed on. So it's not imperative that any former president have access to classified information. They can still get very robust briefings. They can still get down to the granular without talking about sources and methods. And at the end of the day, that's what intelligence personnel are most concerned about, whether there's anything that's being briefed that might reveal the person behind it or the means in which that information was gathered.
Yeah, and also back in the day before this recent spat of politics, presidents relied on former presidents for advice. That hasn't happened so much over the last few elections. But what about Biden's Secret Service protection? The president didn't say anything about that. Where does that come from? Every president gets it.
I would think that it would be much more difficult and much more controversial for him to try to pull the security detail for President Biden. It's never been done before. I can't imagine that he would want to do that now, because what's going to stop the next president from doing the same to him? So I think he will restrict himself to classified information, or when he's talking about clearances, and not mess with the president's security.
All right, Daryl Blocker, good to have you. Thanks for the conversation. A passenger plane that had vanished in Alaska has been found. The Coast Guard finding the plane 35 miles southeast of Nome, where it was headed. At least 3 bodies were found inside the wreckage. 10 people had been on board. The FAA says the plane, operated by Bering Air, was flying over the Bering Sea. Flight data shows a drop in altitude before all contact was suddenly lost. This is the 3rd major aviation incident in just 9 days. ABC's Trevor Ault with more.
Tonight, after a desperate search, the Coast Guard says they've located an aircraft matching the description of the missing passenger plane that vanished over open water in Alaska with 10 people on board. Authorities releasing this image of mangled wreckage. They say 3 bodies were found inside. The Bering Air single-engine Cessna took off from Unalakleet shortly after 2:30 Thursday afternoon, headed for Nome. But about 40 minutes into the flight, the plane disappearing from radar over the Norton Sound, about 12 miles from shore.
Low altitude alert, Bering Air 445. Check your altitude immediately.
Seconds later,
Bering Air 445, Anchorage Center, radar contact lost.
This aircraft experienced some kind of event which caused them to experience a rapid loss in elevation and a rapid loss in speed.
this time-lapse video from hours after the plane vanished shows snowy conditions at the Nome airport where the plane was headed. ATC telling the pilot the runway was temporarily closed as the plane approached.
One of the things that the NTSB will look at, was there a problem? Did the aircraft ice up, and did that lead to a loss of control?
It's the 3rd major aviation incident in just over a week. Last Wednesday, 67 people killed in that mid-air crash between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines plane in Washington, D.C. In the last 24 hours, crews lifting the Black Hawk out of the river amid reports a key safety system was turned off before the collision. Last Friday, a medical transport jet crashing in Philadelphia, killing 7 people in all. Voice recorder found 8 feet deep inside that crater.
And Trevor joins us now. Trevor, what more do we know about the location of this aircraft and the aircraft itself?
Well, Phil, we have heard from the Coast Guard that this was potentially spotted as they had a clue overhead from a different aircraft once this search was underway. And the Coast Guard now says that this wreckage was located 34 miles southeast of Nome, which was its intended destination. Now, as for this kind of aircraft, you see in that image from the Coast Guard all the snow and ice there. FAA data does show this kind of plane has a history of icing problems, dozens of incidents going back to the 1980s, Phil.
All right, Trevor Ault tonight. Trevor, thank you.
Thank you.
A major cross-country storm is moving into the Northeast this weekend, bringing heavy snow and ice to several states. Meteorologist Lee Goldberg of our New York station WABC joins me now. Lee, good to see you. What's coming our way?
Phil, every time we speak, our hometown's about to get slammed with a storm, and that's what happens again as we go through the weekend. That storm right now is in the upper Midwest. We have winter weather alerts from the northern Rockies all the way into the Northeast. Tonight, it's really the upper Midwest. Minneapolis is going to get a few inches of snow, and then that snow is going to move into the Great Lakes tomorrow, a few inches, and then we have a wintry mix from the Ohio Valley to the Mid-Atlantic. But then the storm strengthens, and we start to break out with some snow along the I-95 corridor. By evening, icy mix across parts of Pennsylvania, and the heaviest snow, it's tomorrow night. The brunt from the Hudson Valley of New York all the way into New England. It'll wind down by early Sunday morning. We could see upwards of 6 to 12 inches of snow anywhere from northeast to Scranton, Albany, Portland, maybe just to Boston or on its northwest side. A few inches here in New York, and very concerned about the icy mix across parts of southern Pennsylvania along I-76. A quarter of inch of ice possible. There are ice storm warnings near Johnstown. This storm will move away. A breather Monday. More storminess Tuesday through Thursday. Phil?
Yeah, all right. We'll have to get back to it. Lee Goldberg, thanks so much. Next tonight, the bird flu outbreak spreading across the U.S. New York's governor shutting down live poultry markets in New York City, that area, after detecting multiple bird infections. It comes as the CDC reports the worst human flu season in 15 years. Here's Stephanie Ramos.
In a move to stop the spread of bird flu, the governor of New York today ordering the shutdown of all live poultry markets across New York City, Long Island, and Westchester County for disinfection after inspections detected 7 cases at markets in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens.
There is no immediate public health threat. We have been vigilant and will remain vigilant so New Yorkers can go about their lives with peace of mind.
In just the last month, 22 million poultry have been impacted by bird flu across the country, including 100,000 ducks euthanized on this Long Island farm. Parks from New York to Boston have also closed to the public after the virus killed wild birds.
To have 10 or 12 dead geese is something wrong.
There still has been no human-to-human spread of bird flu. 67 people have been infected in the U.S., and most had direct contact with sick animals. But scientists are closely tracking the spread after a different strain was just confirmed in Nevada dairy cattle. It's the same strain found in an older man from Louisiana, the only American who has died from bird flu.
This is the fear of anybody in public health. When you have a virus that's spreading rapidly in animal populations, it increases the chances for mutations and increases that chance of this virus moving into a place where it is human-to-human transmissible.
Phil, there are about 80 live poultry markets like the one behind me impacted by this temporary shutdown. New York State hasn't had any confirmed human cases of bird flu, but the governor says they are taking action to stop the spread of the virus. Phil.
All right, Stephanie Ramos. Stephanie, thank you. A suspect has been arrested in connection with the death of a reporter who had been in New Orleans to cover the Super Bowl. Police say she was caught using his stolen credit card. It comes as authorities release new images of suspects charged with breaking into the home of Bengals star Joe Burrow, allegedly posing with his stolen watches and jewelry. Here's Aaron Katersky.
Tonight, a sports reporter covering the Super Bowl is dead, and a woman with an alleged history of drugging men is under arrest. Officials accusing Danette Colbert of using the credit card of a Don Manzano after he was found dead in his hotel room. The 27-year-old had traveled to New Orleans to cover the Super Bowl for a Kansas City Telemundo affiliate.
Ms. Colbert has quite a record and rap sheet for confidence games. Ms. Colbert's criminal history does include 2 instances where she drugged a victim.
Police say Colbert and Manzano were seen entering his room at this hotel around 4:30 Wednesday morning. She left about 90 minutes later and never returned.
You asked if this was a homicide. I don't know where it's going to end up. Like I said, we're going to let the evidence lead us to the end result and not speculate.
Telemundo releasing this image of Manzano, calling his death tragic and adding Manzano was a true professional and a rising star who exemplified excellence in his work. This year's Super Bowl follows a rash of burglaries targeting the homes of several pro football players, including Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. He was robbed in December while playing Monday Night Football in Dallas.
Where are you going right now?
The FBI now saying the men seen inside this vehicle are also captured in this photo, posing with some of the items stolen from Burrow's home, including designer luggage, wristwatches, even custom jewelry depicting Burrow's initials and jersey number. Investigators say they also found this picture of Burrow's Cincinnati house on the phone of one of the suspects. And Phil, tonight the FBI is announcing a new crackdown on South American theft groups that they say have been targeting the athletes and other wealthy homeowners across the country. Some of what's been stolen has turned up in Chile and in China. The FBI says it found right here in New York City. Phil.
Senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky. Aaron, thank you. A SEPTA train went up in flames on its way from Philadelphia to Wilmington, Delaware. There were 350 passengers. The train was evacuated. No injuries reported. There's still much more to get to here tonight on Prime. Coming up, even if you're not a big football fan, there is still plenty to see during Sunday's Super Bowl, from the halftime show to the ads, the moments we are anticipating. But next, as the number of people seeking Botox treatment grows, so does the risk of counterfeit doses, the serious and lasting side effects they've already caused.
If you have Botox that's counterfeit but it's too strong, you could get botulism. And
on its website and instead allow community to
Well, I watched their news conference, and I thought it was a very good news conference. I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook. I think they've come a long way. I watched it. The man was very impressive. I watched it. Actually, I watched it on Fox. I'm not allowed to say that. Say it?
Do you think he's directly responding to the threats that you have made to him in the past? With
Probably. Yeah, probably.
The last time you were here, you were asked a question about the U.S. possibly launching a preemptive strike on Iran. You said you wouldn't answer that question.
On who?
Obviously, on Iran. The U.S. launching a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities.
And I said I don't talk about it. It's a military strategy.
But it is a legitimate question. It's something that
well, it's not really, because only a stupid person would answer it. Look, it's a military strategy, and I'm not answering your questions on military strategy. All right, one more. Brian, go ahead. Brian.
Could you give us a preview of what you might be talking to leaders of Congress who are expected to come here in the next couple of days? And you've got a very supportive Congress behind you.
Yeah, they're great. So we have a wonderful Republican Congress. We have a leader that I have a lot of confidence in. I think he's going to be hopefully a great leader, a great speaker. And we have a leader, by the way, in the Senate I think has been great. John Thune has been doing a fantastic job. But it goes through the House first. And the question is whether or not we do the two bills or one bill. And, look, I can live either way. I like the idea of the one big bill, but I can live either way. But they'll be coming down. The senators also will be coming down. And then ultimately we'll be meeting in the White House in a few weeks. But right now this is the winter season. They sort of call this the winter White House. It was built, I don't know if you know this, Marjorie Meriwether Post and E.F. Hutton built this. It was the greatest of all the estates in our country. And I saved it, and I got a lot of credit for saving it. Most of these big, great houses have been knocked down in Palm Beach, just about all of them, actually. And you'd build 10 mansions on one site, but we saved it. But this was built as the Southern White House, and she gave it to the government. And, by the way, Jimmy Carter gave it back. He said it's too expensive for the United States. So I didn't realize that.
Real quick, I was just told.
Actually, Jimmy Carter, Nixon was through Watergate. He came down. Nixon came here once. And he thought it was incredible, but he had a thing called Watergate, if anybody remembers that. And so he had other things on his mind, to put it mildly. And Jimmy Carter felt that it was too extravagant for the country. So fortunately for me, he gave it back to the foundation, and I bought it from the foundation.
On reconciliation, some Republicans saying in trade for a massive bill that you and they share the interest in, they want to see big spending cuts. Do you agree with that? And
Well, I'm okay with spending cuts. I like spending cuts. I'm on the record for spending cuts. And the debt ceiling was given to us. It shouldn't have been, but it was put in our lap. And what I want in terms of debt ceiling isn't the ceiling. I just don't want to see a default. That's all I want. I never talked about spending more money necessarily than all I want to see is no default. Because nobody knows what would happen if there was a default. It could be 1929 and it could be nothing. But that was put into our lap, and it shouldn't have been, but it was. And so we'll handle it. But debt ceiling is not about raising a lot of money. It's really just about extending it. I just want to see an extension.
On immigration, how much can you do by executive order? Are you planning to do on executive order when it comes to immigration? And how much do you want Congress to tackle this issue? And also on day one,
well, I had the safest border in the history of our country by far. You remember the famous chart that I brought down. I love that chart very much for a lot of reasons. But I have the safest border by far in the history of our country. And when I took it over, it was a mess. Nothing like it is now. This is 10 times worse. I got elected because of the border the first time. And I think I got elected largely because of the border the third time. And the second time I did equally well. Well, not as well as the last time, but I did very well. And I will say, this was too big to rig. You know the expression? Too big to rig. They couldn't do it. They tried, but they couldn't do it. I didn't get very much from Congress at all. I just said that we're being invaded, and I took the money out of the military. Much of the wall, I built over 500 miles of wall. Much of that wall was built through money that I put into the military. We took it out because we couldn't get things from Congress in those days, and we took it out. And that wall was built largely with money coming from the military. So, very simple. I went to the military. I said, our country is being invaded. by very similar, nothing like what's invading our country now. They weren't releasing prisons into our country, and they weren't releasing mental institutions in, but some bad dudes were coming in, right? And I said, our country is being invaded. And I took that money largely from the military. I was sued 9 times by the Democrats in Congress, and I won all those suits. And we ended up building 571 miles of wall. Once that wall was built, they start going around it. So we're going to add another 200. That would have been up in 3 weeks. And then we had a very unfortunate election result. And they said, we don't want to put it up. We'll sell it. And they started selling it for 5 cents on the dollar. What a second. So we'll do this again. I just want to thank everybody very much. I'm just telling you, this will be the golden age of America. This is the golden age of America. We're going to have a great country again. We're a country right now under siege. We have so many different problems, and nobody respects us overseas, but now they do. The Italian prime minister, as you know, came here the other night, just flew in and flew out. She wanted to see me. And great respect is being shown. When I went to the cathedral in France, great respect was shown by the prime minister, the president, by everybody. France was, and by the way, I have to say they did a great job in the cathedral. But great respect is being shown to our country again. And we have a great country, but we have to run it properly. It's going to be run properly. We want to get back those hostages for Israel and for us. You know, we do have people that are hostages being held. And I'll just say it again. If this deal's not done with the people representing our nation, by the time I get to office, all hell is going. It's an honor to be with you. Many things are happening that are exciting, very exciting for our country. And we're honored to welcome one of the most respected business leaders in the Middle East, indeed the world. He's a founder and chairman of Damac Properties, Hussein Sajwani, very respected gentleman. And I'm thrilled to announce today that Damac will be investing at least $20 billion over a very short period of time into the United States, and they may go double or even somewhat more than double that amount of money. It's a great thing, and I believe he will say that he's doing it because of the fact that he was very inspired by the election. They wouldn't do it without that election, I can tell you. A lot of people wouldn't. You saw last week where we have somebody who's going to go from $100 to $200 billion, and we have many other people, and we'll be bringing some of them out. Some of them like to do it somewhat more quietly, and some don't, and they feel so strongly about the country that they want to let people know about it. But it's an honor to have such a great investor investing in our country. The investment will support massive new data centers across the Midwest, the Sun Belt area, and also to keep America on the cutting edge of technology and artificial intelligence. He's very big into the data centers, and that's going to be a very hot item in the coming years, as you know, with AI. In particular, the first phase of the project will be in Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, and Indiana, those places. And Hussein, I'd love you to come up and say a few words. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been amazing news for me and my family when he was elected in November. We've been waiting 4 years to increase our investments in U.S. to a very large amount of money. We are a company operating in more than 20 countries around the world. We have delivered more than 45,000 luxury units and another 45,000 in the pipeline. In data center, we are in 10 countries around the world, in Asia, Europe, and Middle East. And we're very, very excited now with his leadership and his open strategy and policy to encourage businesses to come to U.S. For the last 4 years, we've been waiting for this moment. And we're planning to invest $20 billion and even more than that if the opportunity in the market allow us. But at the moment, we're planning $20 billion in data center, catering for the AI and cloud business for the hyperscalers.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Mr.
Great
President.
honor. Thank you very much. So nice. And that man knows what he's doing. He knows. So, Hussein, we're going to work with you and make sure everything goes smoothly. We have powers that haven't really been used in terms of environmental. If you invest over $1 billion in the United States, we're going to give expedited reviews to everybody because everyone's afraid they're going to come in and get caught in the quagmire, which is very prevalent in the United States, unfortunately, the quagmire of environmental and various other regulations and rules. And I made it a point of telling people if you invest $1 billion or more, and we'll do this for people with far less too, but we guarantee it. We're going to move them quickly through the environmental process. Sometimes people held up 12, 13, 14, 15 years. I saw it with plants in Louisiana where I got it approved in literally a week. They were through the review in 1 week after spending 14 and a half years trying to get it, and they were going nowhere. It was a terrible thing. So I've been a victim of that myself over the years, and I think I know all the games and all the tricks that are played, and much of it is just done to stop progress. So we're going to be helping you and everybody else that comes to the United States and wants to invest their money, that you don't get tied up for the rest of your life and you can't do anything. This commitment further underscores that many of the greatest business leaders on earth are seeing a very bright economic future for America since the election. As you know, a lot of positive things have happened. We are inheriting a difficult situation from the outgoing administration, and they're trying everything they can to make it more difficult. Inflation is continuing to rage, and interest rates are far too high. And I've been disappointed to see the Biden administration's attempt to block the reforms of the American people and that they voted for. We had a landslide election. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of people. Nobody even knows how many people, millions. And they're still counting in some areas. You know, they're still counting the vote in some areas. Can you believe this? What a place. What a horrible place. One of the things we're going to do is we've got to fix the election so that we get honest counts and they get done by 10 o'clock in the evening or something thereabouts. They have places where